We are so honored to be hosting tonight's reading and conversation with Eduardo Galeano and Maria Rana in conjunction with the Lannan Foundation. Lannan Foundation has been an extraordinary partner to us over the years, and we are thrilled to be working with them now on a series of public events here in Chicago. We want to thank Patrick Lannan, Larry Lannan, and the board and staff of Lannan Foundation for their invaluable support for the arts, for independent publishing, and for cultural freedom. At Lannan, we would also like to thank Barbara Ventrello and Lori Betlock for their immense help in making this series possible. On September 23rd, we will be hosting Tim DeChristopher and Terry Tempest Williams in Chicago for our next event in partnership with Lannan. We also want to thank our co-sponsors of tonight's program, the Nation Institute and Nation Books, the publisher of Eduardo Galeano's brilliant new collection, Children of the Days, as well as other vital books by Eduardo Galeano. We also want to thank the Instituto Cervantes and the International Latino Cultural Center, as well as the Latin American Cultural Affairs at Columbia College. Our event tonight is part of a two-night series with Eduardo. Our partners in this effort, whom we also want to gratefully acknowledge, the wonderful National Museum of Mexican Art, where Eduardo and Marie spoke last night at a Spanish language event. A couple of quick housekeeping items. I do want to remind people to please turn off your cell phones for the event tonight. We are very pleased that C-SPAN's Book TV is filming tonight. Please do let your friends know that they can watch the event at a later date, to be announced soon at booktv.org. And Eduardo would very much like for me to thank you for being here and for your valued support. He would like to meet each one of you personally, but his health unfortunately does not allow. He has signed books prior to this event, which are for sale in the lobby, and he does thank you for your kindness and your consideration in this matter. Maria Rana will be signing books outside of the auditorium after the event, so please do join us there. Just a few short words about Maria Rana. We're thrilled to welcome her to Chicago. Marie is a biographer, an essayist, a novelist, and a former editor-in-chief of Book World at the Washington Post. Currently, she is a guest columnist for the New York Times, a writer-at-large for the Washington Post, and a senior advisor to the U.S. Librarian of Congress. As an active spokesperson on Latin America and biculturalism, she's also a specialist on the book industry. Marie's Bolivar, American Liberator, was released just last month, and Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Gordon Wood said of the book, "This is a magnificent story, deeply researched and written with clarity, honesty, and verve. Maria Rana's book tells the life of one of the greatest heroes and founders in world history." Please join me in welcoming Maria Rana.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Julie, for that lovely introduction. I suspect all of you know this, but ladies and gentlemen, tonight you will be in the presence of a literary giant. Among Latin American giants, Gabriel Garcia Marquez is known for mesmerizing, Pablo Neruda for wooing, Mario Vargas Llosa educates, Jorge Luis Borges captivates, and then there is Eduardo Galeano, truth-teller, galvanizer, firebrand, a writer who tells us about history that those who inhabit the corridors of power don't want us to know or truly understand. Eduardo Hughes Galeano was born a commentator, it seems. By the time he was 14, he was publishing cartoons in newspapers. By 20, he was the editor of Uruguay's famous left-wing weekly La Marcha. Shortly thereafter, he became the top executive of Montevideo's paper of record, Época. In 1971, at the tender age of 31, he published a hair-raising indictment of North American influence on the hemisphere, The Open Veins of Latin America. 4 years ago, at the summit of the Americas, Hugo Chavez handed a copy of that book to Barack Obama. Right. For all the ease with which Galeano slipped into journalism as a teenager, the rest of his writing life wasn't very easy. After Uruguay's 1973 military coup, he was arrested for his radical views and imprisoned. He broke free and fled to Argentina, where 3 years later he had to flee again. The notorious Brigadier General Jorge Videla, who had deposed Isabel Perón, installed a regime that became known for its secret camps, kidnappings, and torture. When Galeano's name appeared on Argentine death squad lists, he escaped from Buenos Aires and settled in Spain, where he wrote his 3-volume masterwork, a bracingly original narrative of America's 500 years of history, Memory of Fire. Surviving lung cancer a few years ago freed him, he says, to employ an even larger canvas. In Mirrors, published in 2009, he reflects on 5,000 years of human experience. And he manages to do it all with a big heart and a keen, incisive sense of perspective. His theme throughout, the wrongs mankind has endured since time immemorial, and the abiding human spirit that refuses to die. By now, Eduardo's work has been translated into 30 languages. He is a moral force around the world. He is the recipient, as you know, of many international prizes. But perhaps most impressive of all, he is an indefatigable writer. As he told me yesterday, he can't help it. It's a muscle that doesn't tire, even as the body does. This year, we are all beneficiaries of a new work, Children of the Days. Like his earlier works, Children of the Days is a mosaic of miniatures strung together to fashion a remarkable calendar that ravels from January through December like an ancient book of days. Each page, each day, has an illuminating little story that attaches somehow to the corresponding date. We Latins are known for jabbering on, he told me once. I have striven to write it all sharper and shorter. These short, sharp cameos are sometimes deeply disturbing, sometimes enormously reassuring, but all of them eye-opening and memorable. In sum, Eduardo Galeano is a living treasure, a clear-headed writer who has been unafraid to expose what is hidden, to call things as he sees them, and invariably he sees them with a trenchant sense of justice. Eduardo was very much on my mind as I wrote my biography of Simón Bolívar, which is at once a tale of revolutionary triumph and the tragic narrative of unimaginable violence and corrosive mistrust to which we are ongoing heirs in Latin America. I thought of Eduardo as I wrote it, because Eduardo has always been conscious of the ways that history defines us. Living in the past, as I have done for a few years, I understand why Eduardo looks at the present through history. In history, we see ourselves more clearly. We understand that we are inheritors of a brutality that came before us, but as Eduardo also knows, history can show us glimmers of humanity and courage as well. The meek can be heroic, the ordinary among us can be noble in the most humble, quotidian acts, in our fortitude of spirit. Digging my way to the heart of Bolívar, trying to understand who he was as a man and what he came to represent as a quintessential Latin American hero, I always had that Galeano tension in mind, the shining spirit on the one hand, and the all too dark human proclivities on the other. Looking at the world this way, as Eduardo does, with a keen eye to human failings, human courage, and the misuses of power, I believe I was able to get a clearer picture of Bolívar, his time, and how his story has shaped Latin Americans. So I have Eduardo to thank, as so many of us writers do, for his brave, unblinking example. Eduardo Galeano is, after all, as the novelist Julia Alvarez has said, a kind of moral beacon. He keeps me morally awake, Julia said, while lifting my spirits with tales of the sweet, deep humanity which rebounds even after the cruelest moments of history. For all the history that Eduardo has recreated for us in his many illuminating works, he is a writer who has much to teach us about the present, a writer who lives in the right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a superb writer and thinker, Eduardo Galeano.
The first time I came to the United States for a reading, it was some years ago, and my English was quite poor. And so I began the reading saying, "Welcome to the public," saying, "Good night." And everybody laughed. And so I thought, what a nice public. They're so lovely, so nice. They all laugh and laugh. Now I won't say good night. I just will say hello, welcome. I'm going to read some stories from this book, Children of the Days, beginning with something I wrote, like a sort of synthesis of what I understand to be the version of the Genesis in the words of the Mayan Indians in Guatemala and other parts of Latin America. And the days began to walk, and the days made us. And thus we were born, the children of the days, los descubridores, los buscadores de la vida. And if we are the children of the days, it is no surprise that every day gives rise to a story. You see, scientists say we are made of atoms, and it's perhaps true, but a little bird told me that we are made of stories. And now I'm going to tell a few of those stories, born of the days. January 11, the pleasure of going. Today in 1887 in Salta, the north of Argentina, the man who was Salta was born, Juan Carlos Dávalos, founder of a dynasty of musicians and poets. And as they say, I don't know if it's correct or not, but he seems to have been the first to drive a Model T, the Ford with a mustache, in those parts of northern Argentina. His Model T snorted and smoked as its wheels rolled forward. It moseyed down the road. Turtles stopped to wait for it. Then a neighbor came up to him, greeted him, but with a worried face, and commented, "But Mr. Dávalos, at this pace, you'll never get there." And he responded, "I don't travel to arrive, I travel to go." This is a dramatic text, perhaps too sad, but I'm obliged to read it because it's also sadness or tragedies are part of reality. October 14, a defeat for civilization. In the year 2002, 8 McDonald's restaurants closed their doors in Bolivia. I know it's terrible, but that's the way it is. Barely 5 years had this civilizing mission lasted. No one forced McDonald's out, no one. Bolivians simply turned their backs, or better put, McDonald's earned their stomachs. Perhaps people didn't open their mouths. The most successful company on the planet had generously graced the country with its presence, and these ingrates refused to acknowledge the noble gesture. This taste for progress dissuaded Bolivia from embracing either junk food or the dizzying pace of contemporary life. Homemade empanadas derailed development. Bolivians stubbornly attached to the ancient flavors of the family Jaff continue eating without haste in long, slow, very slow ceremonies. Gone forever, forever gone, is the company that everywhere else makes children happy, fires workers who try to unionize, and jacks up the rate of obesity. April 12, manufacturing the guilty party. On a day like today, in the year 33, a day earlier or a day later, Jesus of Nazareth died on the cross. His judges found him guilty of inciting idolatry, blasphemy, and abominable superstition. Not many centuries later, the Indians of the Americas and the heretics of Europe were found guilty of those same crimes, exactly the same ones, and in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, they were punished by lash, gallows, or fire. October 12th, of course, the title is obviously The Discovery. I'm not very original in general. The Discovery. In 1492, the natives discovered they were Indians. You're not serious. I cannot go on. In 1492, the natives discovered they were Indians. They discovered they lived in America. They discovered they were naked. They discovered there was sin. They discovered they owed obedience to a king and a queen from another world and a god from some other heaven. And this god had invented guilt and clothing. And perhaps he had ordered, burned alive all who worship the sun and the moon and the earth and the rain that moistens it. There is a possible counter history of the discovery. It says, it's the history that might have been. Christopher Columbus could not discover America because he didn't have a visa or even a passport. Pedro Álvarez Cabral couldn't get off the boat in Brazil. He might have been carrying smallpox, measles, the flu, or other foreign plagues. Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro never even began the conquest of Mexico and Peru because they didn't have working papers. Pedro de Alvarado was turned away from Guatemala, and Pedro de Valdivia couldn't enter Chile because they didn't bring proof of a clean record. The Mayflower pilgrims were sent back to sea from the coast of Massachusetts because the immigration quotas were full. This is an homage to a couple of friends of mine, Carlos and Gudrun Lenkersdorf. Carlos died 2 or 3 months ago, and they are something like the other face of the moon. No? Carlos and Gudrun Lenkersdorf were born and raised in Germany. In the year 1973, these two illustrious professors arrived in Mexico. They entered the world of the Mayas in a Tojolabal community, and they introduced themselves by saying, "We have come to learn." The Indians remained silent. After a while, one of them explained the silence. This is the first time anyone has told us that. And there they remained, Gudrun and Carlos, learning year after year. From the Mayan language, they learned that no hierarchy separates subject from object, because I drink the water that drinks me, and I am notched by all that I watch. And they learn to greet people in the Mayan way, saying, I am another you, you're another me. The First Exiles, about immigration, which is a subject very popular here. December 18, the First Exiles. Today, December 18, is International Migrants' Day, and it's not a bad moment to recall that the first ones in human history obliged to emigrate were Adam and Eve. According to the official version, I'm afraid it's un poco machista, this version. According to the official version, Eve tempted Adam. She offered him the forbidden fruit, and it was her fault that both of them were banished from paradise. But is that how it happened? Really, is that? Or did Adam do what he did of his own accord? Hizo lo que hizo porque quiso. Maybe Eve offered him nothing and asked nothing of him. Maybe Adam chose to bite the forbidden fruit when he learned that Eve had already done so. Maybe she had already lost the privilege of immortality, and Adam opted to share her damnation. So he became mortal, but not alone. March 9. I'm sorry, but it's about the day Mexico invaded the United States. I'm really sorry. It's not, the international situation and so on. But on this early morning, March 9, in 1916, Pancho Villa crossed the border with his horsemen, set fire to the city of Columbus, killed some soldiers, nabbed a few horses and guns, and the following day was back in Mexico to tell the tale. This lightning incursion, one day and some hours, is the only invasion the United States has suffered. In contrast, the United States has invaded practically every country in the entire world. Since 1947, its Department of War has been called, and is still called, the Department of Defense, and its war budget is called the Defense Budget. The names are an enigma comparable with the mystery of the Holy Trinity. July 1st, one terrorist fewer. It's always a good news, no? One terrorist fewer. In the year 2008, the government of the United States decided to erase Nelson Mandela's name from its list of dangerous terrorists. Nelson Mandela was in the list of terrorists dangerous for the national security of the United States. The most revered African in the world had featured on that sinister role during 60 years. So when I didn't know it, when somebody noticed me or told me that it happened during 60 years, Nelson Mandela, a terrorist, in the list of dangerous terrorists, I began to have some doubts about war on terrorism. I mean, is it really serious? If it would be serious, I would suggest to celebrate the Day Against Terrorism on September 11, obviously, each September 11, I would suggest to pasting posters all around the world, everywhere, about the real terrorism. Posters saying, wanted for kidnapping countries, wanted for strangling wages and slashing jobs, wanted for raping the land, poisoning the water, and stealing the air, wanted for trafficking in fear. June 5, nature is not mute. Reality paints still lives. Disasters are called natural, as if nature were the executioner and not the victim. Meanwhile, the climate goes crazy, and we do too get crazy. I, at least, absolutely. Today, June 5, is World Environment Day. A good day to celebrate the new constitution of Ecuador, which in the year 2008 for the first time in the history of the world, recognized nature as a subject with rights. It seems strange, this notion that nature has rights, as if it were a person. But in the United States, it seems perfectly normal that big companies have human rights. And they do, ever since a Supreme Court decision in 1886. So if nature were a bank, they would have already rescued it. June 26, the Kingdom of Fear. Today is the International Day Against Torture. By tragic irony, the Uruguayan military dictatorship was born the following day in 1973 and soon turned the country, my country, into one huge torture chamber. For obtaining information, torture was useless or practically useless. But it was very, very useful for sowing fear. And fear obliged Uruguayans to live by silence or lies. While I was in exile, I received some anonymous and unsigned letters from Uruguay. One of the letters said, "Lying sucks, and getting used to lying sucks. But worse than lying is teaching to lie. And I have 3 children." Of all the thousands of stories, terrible stories, of military dictatorships in Latin America, it was almost impossible to choose, to have the choice. And I finally tried to resume everything in a very short story, which is quite original. I mean, it's not, I have never heard it before. I've heard lots of stories of criminal terror and its victims. But this is special. Oscar Liñeira was one of the thousands of young men disappeared in Argentina. He was a student in the university, and all his crime was to be disturbing the order in the university with nothing. In military lingo, he was transferred. He disappeared, he was transferred. Piero di Monte, imprisoned at the same base, el mismo cuartel, heard his last words. "I have got something to tell you. You know something? I have never made love. Now they are going to kill me, and I never will." Day of the Disappeared, August 30. August 30, Day of the Disappeared. Disappeared, graveless dead, nameless graves. And also, old-growth natural forests, stars in city nights, the fragrance of flowers, the taste of fruits, letters written by hand, old cafes where there was time to waste time, soccer in the street, the right to walk, the right to breathe, secure jobs, secure retirement, doors without locks, a sense of community, and common sense also disappeared. November 1, danger, animals. In 1986, mad cow disease struck the British Isles, and more than 2 million cows suspected of harboring contagious dementia faced capital punishment. In 1997, avian flu from Hong Kong sowed panic and condemned 1.5 million birds to premature death. In the year 2009, Mexico and the United States suffered an outbreak of swine, cerdo, chancho, swine flu, the swine flu. Sorry for my pronunciation. Suffered an outbreak of swine flu, and the entire world had to shield itself from the plague. Millions of pigs, no one knows how many, were sacrificed for coughing or sneezing. Who is guilty of causing human disease? Animals. Is that simple? Así de sencillo. Animals, free of all suspicion, are the giants of global agribusiness, those sorcerers, apprentices who turn food into high-potency chemical bombs. About opinion makers, a couple of things. April 11, on this day in the year 2002, a coup d'etat turned the president of a business association into the president of Venezuela. His glory did not last long. A couple of days later, Venezuelans filling the streets reinstated the president they had elected with their votes. Venezuela's biggest TV and radio networks celebrated the coup, but somehow failed to cover the massive demonstrations that restored Hugo Chavez to his rightful place. Unpleasant news is not worth reporting. And this is a brother or a sister of the other story, but happened sometimes before. February 24, a lesson in realism. But it's also about the media, no? What I call in Spanish, los miedos de comunicación. In 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte escaped from his prison in the island of Elba and set off to regain the French throne. On he marched, accompanied by a steadily growing army, while his former official organ, the journal called Le Moniteur Universel, swore that the people of France were eager to die to protect King Louis XVIII. The paper said Napoleon had sullied and raped the soil of the fatherland, called him foreign outlaw, usurper, traitor, plague, bandit chief, enemy of France, who dares befoul the land from which he has been expelled, and announced this will be his final act of insanity. In the end, the king fled, no one died for him, and Napoleon took his seat on the throne without firing a shot. And then, the same daily, went on to report that the happy news of Napoleon's arrival in the capital has caused a sudden and unanimous outburst of joy. Everybody is hugging. Cheers for the emperor fill the air. In every eye are tears of bliss. All rejoice at the return of France's hero and swear the deepest obedience to his majesty, the emperor. Los miedos de comunicación. This is a homage to the international community and also an explanation of the failure of all the summit meetings. They always fail. I mean, they celebrate once per week a summit meetings, and the result is always a failure. And I have this explanation, possible explanation. The cook convened the calf, the suckling pig, the ostrich, the goat, the deer, the chicken, the duck, the hare, the rabbit, the partridge, the turkey, the dove, the pheasant, the hake, the sardine, the cod, the tuna, the octopus, the shrimp, the squid, and even the crab and the turtle. The crab and the turtle, who were obviously the last to arrive. When all were present and accounted for, the cook explained, I have brought you here to ask what sauce would you like to be eaten with? One of the invitees responded, I don't want to be eaten at all. And then the cook adjourned the meeting. That's why the summit meetings fail. This is connected with the other one about the international experts. It's called The Visitor. One day of beginning of September in the year 2000, 189 countries drew up the Millennium Declaration by which they committed themselves to solving the world's poverty and other problems. Only one goal has been reached, and it did not figure on their list. They managed to multiply the number of experts required to take on such a challenging agenda. According to what I heard in Santo Domingo, one of those experts stopped by a chicken farm on the outskirts of the city of Santo Domingo. The farm belonging to Doña María de las Mercedes Holmes, and asked her, if I tell you exactly how many chickens you have, will you give me one? He turned on his touch-screen tablet computer, initiated the GPS, connected with a satellite camera through his 3G cell phone, and booted up the pixel counting function. You have 132 chickens, and he caught one. Doña María de las Mercedes did not leave it at that. If I tell you what your work is, will you give me back my chicken? Okay, you are an international expert. I know it because you came without anyone calling you. You entered my chicken farm without asking permission. You told me something I already knew, and then you charged me for it. October 17 is Silent Wars. It's the International Day for the eradication of poverty. Poverty does not explode like bombs or boom like gunfire. We know everything about poor people, everything, what they don't work at, what they don't eat, how much they don't weigh, how much they don't grow, what they don't think, how often they don't vote, and what they don't believe in. The only thing left to learn is why poor people are poor. Could it be because we are clothed by their nakedness and nourished by their hunger? The fact is, there is a world fight against poor people, but not against poverty. And the best part, the major part of world richness goes on to finance wars and military expenses, which may be also called criminal expenses, and to other ends, also quite absurd. The distribution of world resources are quite absurd. For instance, just to give you an example, on the World Science Day, November 10, a Brazilian physician named Drauzio Varela studied some statistics of and numbers about this subject, investments on different purposes. And he calculated that the world invests 5 times as much in male sex stimulants and female silicone implants as in finding a cure for Alzheimer's. 5 times more than in Alzheimer's, a cure for Alzheimer's. So, in a translation, it would be that equivalent to say a prophecy. In a few years more, we will have all women with huge teeth and old men with stiff cocks, but none of them will remember what they are for. Yeah. A lesson in theater, December 6. On this day, December 6, in 1938, the House Committee on Un-American Activities, operating out of Washington, questioned Hallie Flanagan. She ran the Federal Theater Project. Joe Starnes, a congressman from Alabama, led the interrogation. Referring to an article Hallie had written, he asked, "You are quoting from this Marlowe. Is he a communist?" "Oh," she said, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but I was quoting from Christopher Marlowe. "Oh, tell us who this Marlowe is, so we can get the proper reference." "Well, he was the greatest dramatist in the period immediately preceding Shakespeare." "Ah, of course," said the senator. Yes, we had some people, some of these people called communists, back in the days of the Greek theater. And she said, "Quite true." And I believe, continued the Senator Starnes, and I believe Mr. Euripides, even Mr. Euripides was guilty of teaching class consciousness, wasn't he? Well, I believe that was alleged against almost all of the Greek dramatists. and the congressman turned psyched. So we cannot say when it began. December 5, the longing for beauty, no? Longing for beauty. The president of the Spanish Society of Natural History ruled in 1886, December 5, that the cave paintings at Altamira were not thousands of years old. No, not at all. They are the work of some mediocre disciple of today's school of modern art, he insisted, confirming the suspicions of nearly all the experts. 20 years later, those experts had to admit they were wrong. Thus, it was proven that the longing for beauty, like hunger and like desire, has always accompanied the human adventure in the world. Many years before that thing we call civilization, we were turning birds' bones into flutes and seashells into necklaces. We were making colors by mixing earth, blood, powdered rocks, and plant juices to beautify our caves and turn our bodies into walking paintings. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived at Veracruz, they found the Huasteco Indians walking around naked, she's and he's, with their bodies painted to please each other and themselves. The conquistador Bernal Díaz del Castillo concluded, "These are the worst." This is a homage to poetry, and especially to a poet who was my friend, my brother. May 10, the unforgivable. The poet Roque Dalton wielded a defiant wit. He never learned to shut up or take orders, and he loved and loved fearlessly. Tenía un hondo y poderoso sentido del humor y del amor. On the eve of this day, in the year 1975, his fellow guerrillas in El Salvador shot him dead while he slept. Criminales. Revolutionaries who kill to punish disagreement are no less criminals than generals who kill to perpetuate injustice. Off to the loony bin. Let me see. I forgot something here. Sorry, I'm absent-minded, and perhaps also a little mentally retarded. Okay, let's go. Groupers and other fish, dolphins, swans, flamingos, albatrosses, penguins, buffaloes, ostrich, koala bears, orangutans and other monkeys, butterflies and other insects, and many more of our relatives in the animal kingdom have homosexual relations, female to female, male to male, for an encounter or for a lifetime. Lucky for them, they aren't people, humans, or they should be sent to the loony bin. until this day, May 16, in the year 1990, 15 minutes ago in historical terms, homosexuality featured on the World Health Organization's list of mental illnesses. Una enfermedad mental. This is the kind of experts that are ruling the world. It's evidente que este experto nunca había escuchado la hermosa canción de Milton Nascimento, el músico brasileño que dice que toda manera de amor vale amar, que toda manera de amor vale cantar, que toda manera de amor vale la pena. February 8, General Smooch. In 1980, an extraordinary demonstration hit the streets of the Brazilian city of Sorocaba. Under the military dictatorship, a judge had outlawed kisses that undermined public morals. The ruling by Judge Manuel Morales, which punished such kisses with jail terms, described them this way. Some kisses are libidinous and therefore obscene, like a kiss on the neck, on the private parts, etc. And like the cinematographic kiss, in which the labial mucosa come together in an unsophisticated expansion of sensuality. The city responded by becoming one huge kissodrome. Never had people kissed so much. Prohibition sparked desire, and many were those who, out of simple curiosity, wanted a taste of the unsophisticated kiss. August 13. The right to bravery. In 1816, the government in Buenos Aires bestowed the rank of lieutenant colonel on Juana Azurduy in virtue of her manly efforts. She led the guerrillas who took Cerro Potosí from the Spanish in the War of Independence. War was men's business, and women were not allowed to horn in. Yet male officers could not help but admire what they called the virile courage of this woman. After many miles on horseback, when the war had already killed her husband and 5 of her 6 children, Juana also lost her life. She died in poverty, poor among the poor, and was buried in a common grave. Nearly 2 centuries later, the Argentine government, now led by a woman, promoted her to the rank of general in homage to her womanly bravery. About another woman I admire a lot. I love her. January 15, the shoe. In 1919, Rosa Luxemburg, the revolutionary, was murdered in Berlin. Her killers bludgeoned her with rifle blows and tossed her into the waters of a canal. Along the way, she lost a shoe. Someone picked up the shoe. That shoe dropped in the mud. Rosa longed for a world where justice would not be sacrificed in the name of freedom, and freedom would not be sacrificed in the name of justice. Every day, some hand picks up that banner, dropped in the mud, like the shoe. Voyage of the World. In Rome in the year 208, Quintus Serenus Samonicus wrote Liber Medicinalis, a book in which he revealed his discoveries in the art of healing. Among other remedies, this physician of two emperors, poet and owner of the best library of his time, proposed an infallible way to avoid tertian fever and keep death at bay, just by hanging a word across your chest day and night. The word was abracadabra, which in ancient Hebrew meant, and still means, envía tu fuego hasta el final. And then, last, in Spanish, I want to read a text about the last day of the year. It's not from this book, it's from another book wrote 3 or 4 years before. Diciembre 31, El paso del tiempo. If you want, I don't know, I may read first in English and later in Spanish, the same text, or directly in Spanish, is okay? Both? Los dos? One, first in English and later in Spanish. 6 centuries after its founding, Rome decided that the year would begin on the first day of January. Before then, years began on March 15. The date had to be changed for reasons of war. Spain was on fire. The rebellion, which challenged the empire's might and devoured thousands upon thousands of legionaries, obliged Rome to change the tally of its days and the cycles of its affairs of state. The uprising lasted many long years until at last the city of Numancia, capital of the Hispanic rebels, was besieged, vanquished, and burned to the ground. Its remains lie on a hill surrounded by fields of wheat at the edge of the Duero River. On the city that changed the world's calendar forever, practically nothing is left. But when we raise our glasses at midnight, every December 31, we drink a toast to her, the city of Numancia. Whether or not we realized it, may there always be another year and people born free. 6 siglos después de su fundación, Roma decidió que el año empezaría el primer día de enero. Hasta entonces, cada año nacía el 15 de marzo, pero no hubo más remedio que cambiar la fecha por razón de guerra. España ardía. La rebelión que desafiaba el poderío imperial y devoraba miles y más miles de legionarios obligó a Roma a cambiar la cuenta de sus días y los ciclos de sus asuntos de Estado. Largos años duró el alzamiento, hasta que por fin la ciudad de Numancia, la capital de los rebeldes hispanos, fue sitiada, incendiada y arrasada. En una colina rodeada de campos de trigo a orillas del río Duero yacen sus restos. Casi nada ha quedado de esta ciudad que cambió para siempre el calendario universal. Pero a la medianoche de cada 31 de diciembre, cuando alzamos las copas, brindamos por ella, aunque no lo sepamos, para que sigan naciendo los libres y los años. Thank you.
truly wonderful cameos. Every little story with something important to say. But Eduardo, you didn't tell my favorite one, which is the one that, as you know, during Holy Week in Latin America, we have processions, no? We have processions and the whole community goes out and the people watch the Jesus perform the Stations of the Cross, and he drags the cross through town with everybody watching. Shall I tell it or you tell it?
But I don't have the book.
Well, I'll tell it then, because I know it by memory.
You didn't bring the book?
Of course, I didn't bring the book, but I know the story.
No, but the story is the story I told about
Right.
the
little boy.
little child. I would like to read it myself.
Please. Yes.
Because it's my friend, this child.
Yes. Can we have the book?
Yes, please. Oh, the book appeared, the miracle.
Okay, here we go.
Come in.
Do you remember the day?
Yeah.
It's a wonderful story. My favorite. I'm sorry to assign you this task.
I'll reach it easily through the index. Just a moment, Rabasco. Now I got it.
It's worth waiting for.
Rabasco, Marcos, 123.
Ahí está.
It happened recently, the story.
Ahí está.
Very recently, in the last Holy Week, 123. Yes. It's called El Indignado. April 21. It happened in Spain, in a town of La Rioja, on the evening of this day, April 21, in 2011, during an Easter procession. A huge crowd watched in silence as Jesus Christ, being whipped by Roman soldiers, passed by. But a voice broke the silence. Seated on his father's shoulders, Marcos Rabasco shouted at the man being whipped, "Defiéndete, defiéndete, fight back, fight back." Marcos was 2 years, 4 months, and 21 days old.
Fight back. Thank you for reading that. Eduardo is my favorite. Now, I've read somewhere that your great fear is that we are all suffering from amnesia. Is that so?
I don't know if my great fear, but I'm sure that it's something, a huge problem to solve, or try to solve, because we are, our rainbow, the human rainbow, the terrestrial rainbow, is being mutilated by the official amnesia, who suppressed some of our best colors and our most shining in beauty colors in this rainbow, our rainbow. And this mutilation has been done, and is still do each day, by the machismo, which suppressed the colors coming from women and women's histories, and of elitismo, racismo, the racism also, militarismo, and other ismos that are mutilating us. And this is some sort of amnesia who avoid us, prohibit us to see in the plenitude of our possible beauty, of our possible greatness. And so in this sense, I think I write, or I try to write, to help the rediscovery of the human rainbow, and recovering the memory of a lot of women and a lot of black people and Indians and Mats and so many excluded from this world, and some of them so valuable, so important. In my reading today, I told two stories, one about Rosa Luxemburg and the other Juana Azurduy, which are very good examples of this. But there are also a lot of other stories. There is a poem about black people, which is not mine, but I included it in the book. The black excluded people, yes. It's a poem by...
another one.
By Senghor. Senghor is a great poet from, I think, from Senegal. I'm not sure. Yes, from Senegal.
From Senegal.
Let me see. Where is it? Senghor. Let me see if it, but Senghor. It's not mine, but it's so beautiful that I thought it was a crime not to include it.
What page? 253? 53. Page 53.
Oh, really?
Look at this crowd. 63. 63.
Yes, no, 200, no, 263 perhaps. No, yes, 263.
Right.
Not 63, 263.
263.
So I was not so inefficient, no. Finally I got it, with your help, of course. But it's so beautiful. 263. Beloved white brother, when I was born, I was black. When I grew up, I was black. When I am in the sun, I am black. When I fall ill, I am black. When I die, I will be black. And meanwhile you, when you were born, you were pink. When you grew up, you were white. When you are in the sun, you turn red. When you feel cold, you turn blue. When you feel fear, you turn green. When you fall ill, you turn yellow. When you die, you will be gray. So, which of us is the colored man?
That is beautiful. You know, this book, Eduardo, as you well know, is full of women. As you say, you've rescued a lot of women from oblivion. And I would say that at least half of the book is about women. Was this a conscious choice on your part?
And also Mirrors and other books, Memory of Fire.
Yes.
I'm
It's
always
always been the
trying
case.
to recover
Right.
these voices, so important para el coro humano, and not only because women are half of all of us, but also because there were women so valuable, so courageous, so intelligent, so smart, so creative, but guilty of being women. Yes, guilty of being woman, really. But nowadays it's not so terrible as it was before, but it's still a world, a machista world. And we are quite machistas Not me. I'm the only. I am the only exception. But all the other men here, here in the theater are machistas pigs, all of them.
I think you once said that Latin America is like a woman whispering in your ear. No?
Latin America is like a woman?
Latin America is a woman talking in your ear.
Talking
You once
at my
said that,
ear,
yes.
secrets, yes.
Secrets.
Telling me secrets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lovely picture.
That's what I feel. Yes.
Sandra Cisneros, I think you must know who she is, once said that you write like a woman.
Perhaps, yes. Perhaps it's true. And
I don't know what that would mean.
What is true also is that I steal the dreams of my wife, Elena Villagra, because she dreams marvelous dreams. And my dreams are so stupid that I have no choice but to steal her dreams, because the other day I was telling, I don't remember where, the story of a dream when we were speaking. I don't know if it was yesterday or in another place, but I was speaking about this sort of collective hysteria nowadays, with the subject of security, insecurity, and how the airports have becoming something like a hell, no? It's terrible. The airport is a terrible place, and for me at least. This striptease, take off your belt, take off your shoes. What are you trying there? What is it for? No, it's not. No. And so she had a dream. Usually at breakfast time, it's always the same humiliating scene. She asking, "Did you have a dream last night?" And I answering, "Perhaps yes, but I forgot it completely." And you? Oh, I did have, yes, a dream. A dream about what? Oh, airports. Airports? Really? Yes. And then she told me that she has dreamed about an airport with a long, very long line of passengers waiting. We both were in the line. Each one of the passengers with the pillow under the arm, the pillow used the night before. And all the pillows were sent to a machine who was able to read inside the pillows the dreams dreamed the night before. It was a machine specialized in seeking dreams dangerous for national security. And the fact is that really dreams are dangerous for the national security.
Indeed. Well, speaking of dreams, we Latin Americans are accused of living in magical realism. And could you explain, Eduardo, to this audience, what is magical realism, after all?
Magical what?
Magical realism.
No, it's just a literary way of telling that reality is real, because all is magical in the daily life. Just that we're trained to be blind, and we cannot discover the magic inside each little apparently insignificant fact of the quotidian life. No? I think the real greatness is not in the big, famous. No. The real greatness is inside the small things, the small facts, the small gifts that we received from reality each day and each night. No? And it's just the problem, as we are blind of our rainbow, beautiful rainbow, we are also blind of the greatness of small things and small people. And usually it's exactly an upside-down world, because we are supposed to be near, to admire, to applaud everything that is big and heavy and spectacular, instead of looking at the little facts of each day, in which magic is inside, contained, and visible only for those who have the eyes open and can be able to see what other people cannot see, because they are trained to be blind of the beauty of life, perhaps because usually beauty comes accompanied by the horrors, by ugly things. We are contradictions in movement. I mean, each of us contain a hell and a heaven. And this is the motor of life, of all life. There was a sentence I used of Karl Marx, my friend Carlitos. A sentence I used as an introduction to Days and Nights of Love and War, which says something like, en la historia, como en la naturaleza, la podredumbre es la fuente de la vida. It's a homage to contradiction, because it would be said in English, in history, as, ¿cómo es? En la historia. Como en la vida, no.
As in life.
En la historia, como en la vida, la podredumbre, no, en la historia como en la naturaleza, en la historia como en la naturaleza, la podredumbre es la fuente de la vida. In history, as in nature, ¿cómo es la podredumbre?
Right.
Is the source of life.
The source of life, right.
And I was sure that this was a sentence written by Karl Marx. But the German translator of this book of mine, Days and Nights of Love and War, happened to be a specialist in all the life and works of Karl Marx, and he told me that he couldn't find this sentence en la historia, en la historia, así como en la naturaleza, la podredumbre es la fuente de la vida. And so I began looking myself in my books, and I couldn't find it, but I was absolutely sure that I had read it, and that it was a sentence of Marx. And so I answered to my translator, don't worry, the sentence is a sentence of Marx, but he forgot to write it.
I like especially what Eduardo said, that each of us contains a little heaven and a little hell. It's a wonderful concept. And
some people contains a hell much bigger than this.
and in the small things lies the heaven. I want to thank Eduardo very, very much for being with us tonight. It was absolutely wonderful.